This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by broadcasting legend Jim Lampley here in Las Vegas. Jim, good to see you. How are you doing? How's life treating you?
I'm doing all right. I've got a little bit of a cold. I was in Canastota, New York for the International Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Long trip out here yesterday. I'll recover before fight night, so doing all right.
Some great legends obviously inducted into the Hall of Fame. What's it like to see so many people inducted, so many legends from the UK? Obviously we had Ricky Hatton and Jane Couch.
It was a great weekend, and I felt like there were many legends, yes. I had the privilege of making a little bit of an introductory speech for Mickey Ward without any warning. Just got called up to the podium to talk about Mickey and Arturo and that rivalry, and many other fighters. It was a glorious weekend in Canastota, and my publicist, who personally handles me now for PPV.com, the very great Fred Sternberg, was inducted into the hall. So it's been a glorious weekend for us all.
Jim, obviously the reason we're here in Las Vegas is there's two big names, well, there's a few big names rather than just two, taking place in a mega show, the 100th boxing event to be held here at the MGM, and obviously you've come back to experience it. When you reflect on these 100 fights, what's your recollections of boxing at the MGM?
Well, when I began calling fights at ABC Sports in the late 1980s and pretty quickly gravitated to HBO, at that particular time, the Mirage, Caesar's Palace, various other of the hotels here on the Strip, the Las Vegas Hilton, all of those places hosted fights and major fight cards. And I can remember doing major fights at every single one of those places. But then fairly quickly after that, within the next several years, the boxing scene coalesced in such a way that this venue became the most meaningful one. And one of the most meaningful fights, if not the most meaningful fight I ever called here, was George Foreman knocking out Michael Moore November 5, 1994, here at the MGM Grand, to become the oldest heavyweight champion in history, at a moment when he was the expert commentator for HBO Boxing, working with me on our telecasts. So on that basis alone, and on many others, I have very deep and glorious memories of the MGM Grand. And over the years, of course, these rooms became a sort of second home for me. And I'm glad that the hotel maintains its interest in boxing to this day. It's great for all of us.
Gervonta Davis, one of the boxing stars, returns to the ring against Frank Martin on Saturday. What are your thoughts on Tank Davis versus Frank Martin?
Well, it's a very interesting fight. First of all, because there's such a high concentration of talent right now between 126 and 146. I mean, if you look from featherweight up to lightweight, up to light welterweight, up to welterweight, many good fighters, any of whom could interact with each other at some point along the way. It's good that Tank is getting into the ring with a legitimate opponent who could conceivably give him trouble. I think if we were to poll most of the people here in the media room, we're going to find an overwhelming preponderance of people believe that Tank is the logical favorite and is going to win the fight. If you look at the kinds of indicators that have come along during my boxing commentary career and have become meaningful and current during the boxing career, most particularly CompuBox numbers, punch count, Tank is a very unusual fighter. You don't often see a really selective, tactical power puncher, and that's what he is. He's not trying to unload 20, 30, 40 power punches per round and swamp his opponent with activity. He's trying to set up the 1, 2, or 3 good shots that are going to leave his opponent on the canvas, and he's been remarkably effective in doing that. 27 knockouts and 29 wins. So I'm very excited to be calling one of his fights for the first time, and if he succeeds against a good opponent, getting a look at where I think he fits into the future.
When you speak of the future, I know always there's a fighter's mentality, one fight at a time, but What's the standout name or the standout fight for Tank Davis you would like to see maybe at the back end of 2024?
Well, first of all, a step toward that is I want to see what happens to Devin Haney against an opponent who may not be enhanced at the time at which they fight. I want to see if Devin Haney can come back and regather his boxing skills in such a way that he could be a meaningful opponent for Tank. Shakur Stevenson is a brilliant boxer with some physical assets that might be problematic for Tank. Like to see that. I think there are 5 or 6 of them because, as I said, there's so much depth in that area right now.
Do you think it's just a fantasy of a potential fight between Tank and Inoue?
I don't know that I would ever advise Inoue to want to move up that far in weight. I haven't covered him enough to know enough about his body to determine in my mind whether we'll ever see Naoya Inoue at 135 or 140 or 146. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. Obviously, he's a spectacular talent. And I think that Tank is going to appear at welterweight and maybe even junior middleweight at some point. So I could certainly see a separation between Tank and Inoue continuing as long as they move up gradually in weight, but probably always with Inoue 8 pounds, 12 pounds lower.
On this undercard, it's kind of a joint headline, if you will. Benavidez and Alexander Gvozdyk. Benavidez' first fight up at 175 in a meaningful fight. If Gvozdyk still has that fire left in him, it could be a very tough fight ahead and night ahead for Benavidez. What do you make of Benavidez-Gvozdyk?
Well, I think Benavidez is the most powerful puncher for his weight in boxing at this moment. Okay,
at 175, including Beterbiev, who's there?
Yeah, I think at this moment, from what I've seen, Benavidez may have a little edge over Beterbiev in punching power. Beterbiev diminishing at this moment in his career, Benavidez getting better and better. That's just what I see right now. That's great incentive for Beterbiev to go out and prove me wrong. But yeah, I think that Benavidez is a phenomenon as a power puncher, and I'm fascinated to see what happens to him going forward. Another amazing thing about David Benavidez is I think he's very honest and very classy. And when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago with regard to this upcoming fight, he was at pains to point out to me, he said, I sparred with Gvozdyk a couple of years ago in Oxnard. I had a fair number of rounds in the ring with him, and I had trouble. His jab gave me trouble. His counterpunching skills gave me trouble. I was not able to dominate Alexander Gvozdyk when I was in the ring with him the way I wanted to. Obviously, that's sparring, not fighting. Obviously, Benavidez may be helping himself by setting his opponent up. But I thought it was fascinating that somebody of Benavidez's meaning and esteem in the sport right now would be willing to say to me, I was in sparring with him and I had trouble. That's very revealing and very unusual and probably a credit to Benavidez and how he prepares for a fight.
With Benavidez, we've seen those out in Saudi Arabia have mentioned that they'd like to see him face the winner of Beterbiev-Bivol. Stylistically, what fight do you think would cause Benavidez more problems, Dmitry Bivol or Artur Beterbiev?
Oh, I think Bivol is more of a mystery to everybody than Beterbiev. Beterbiev is a power puncher, and you know what you're looking at. I'm not saying that means that Benavidez could beat either of them. I think that both Bivol and Beterbiev are terrific talents, and they both came out of the same Soviet boxing training machine. They have legitimate fundamental skills, trained over a long period of time. But I think that because he is the boxer-puncher rather than the puncher-boxer, Bivol is the bigger mystery of the two.
If we were to ever see Canelo-Benavidez, would you slightly favour David, given how kind of complimentary you've been so far?
I can't favour anybody against Canelo Alvarez until proven otherwise. And Canelo Alvarez's single greatest asset at this point in his career, as far as I'm concerned, is his punch resistance. He showed it against Jaime Munguia. You can hit him right on the button, and it doesn't bother him. So until somebody proves that they can break that shield down and get Canelo ruffled in some way by power punching, I'm not picking a power puncher to beat Canelo Alvarez.
Jim, one other thought I just want to touch on before we wrap this up. You mentioned the heavyweight scene earlier. You mentioned George Foreman. We had an undisputed king crowned recently when Alexander Usyk defeated Tyson Fury. What did you make of Usyk's victory?
Well, you know, the same things he proved against Joshua, he proved again against Fury. He is strong enough and powerful enough to take the punch of a bigger man. He has remarkable volume and counterpunching skills for someone in the heavyweight division. He has great mobility. He knows what the advantage is of being a southpaw. He doesn't rely overwhelmingly on it, but it's part of what makes him good. I think until proven otherwise, you have to favor Usyk against anyone he fights.
What was most impressive for you in Alexander's performance? Because for many people, when he got to maybe the 6th, maybe the 7th round, it seemed like Tyson was really starting to get into his groove and take control. And then Usyk not just found one gear, he just seemed to find 3-4 gears and really stem the flow of the fight and turn it into his favour.
He got a knockdown against Fury. I didn't know that he could do that. You know, this is analogous to Ali Frazier 1. Not a lot of people knew or understood that Frazier was the one who could knock Ali down. That's what won the fight. Usyk was the one who could knock Fury down. That's what won the fight.
What happens in a rematch? Is it still as close as what the first fight was?
I think in a rematch, given their lifestyles, given their body types, given their fighting styles, Usyk has a better chance of getting better than does Fury. It's hard for me to imagine Fury getting better. You know, maybe there's a better mental motivation, a better incentive for him, but Usyk doesn't seem to need incentive. He's a pro. He's in there to be the best he can be under any circumstances, and he's proven everything he possibly could so far.
Jim, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Obviously, enjoy the week ahead, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Thank you for speaking to me in Boxing News.
Thank you very much.